We are not doctors. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as medical advice. Consult your physician before starting any workout routine. This is the Martial Heart Podcast.
Hey there, everybody. How you doing? I know it's been a long time. It's been a few weeks since I've really sat down and had an opportunity to do anything on here. That's because there's been a lot going on, and I'm going to explain it to you finally. Mostly because she finally told everybody, so now I get to tell everybody because it's something that we weren't going to discuss in public until it was all over with, and now it is. So here we go. The Martial Heart podcast, of course, we're about hearts and all of that. Well, my wife had her own heart issue that we had to deal with. It wasn't a heart attack. She doesn't have coronary artery disease. She doesn't have any of that stuff. There's no heart failure type of thing going on. What she had was a hole in her heart, and she had some medical issues, and while they were doing their testing to figure out what exactly was happening, well, they found out, hey, you've got a hole in your heart. And it's not uncommon, apparently. I'm going to play you a video from University Hospitals, which is a local hospital system here in Northeast Ohio. And how Cleveland became known as world-class hospitals is really unknown to me, but we do have them. We have teaching hospitals. We have the Cleveland Clinic. We have university hospitals and several other hospital systems that have been absorbed by Cleveland Clinic. They retain their original names, but they just put Cleveland Clinic in the front of it. So like the Akron General Wellness Center is Cleveland Clinic Akron General Wellness Center. So they're like the Romans, where they let you keep most of your culture there. You just have to pay your tribute to Caesar, or Cleveland Caesar Clinic, something like that. But I'm going to play that for you because it's called a PFO, and I'm not even pronouncing it correctly. I don't know if the guy in the video is pronouncing it correctly, but what it is there's a hole between the two upper chambers of your heart, and it allows blood to pass in between those two chambers, which it's not supposed to. It's supposed to go in one side, go through a filtration system, and then come back out the other side of your heart, the other chamber, and then go to your brain. Well, if there's a hole in between, it allows things to pass in between, including blood clots. So I just am going to turn this on, and I'm going to put it on a web share. Now, for all of you copyright people, this is fair use. I'm doing this for a public service. I'm going to play some of this video, or at least a few minutes of it, so you can understand what a PFO is, because this doctor is going to explain it to us. And so here we go. Let's go with that.
A foramen ovale is a small hole between the two upper chambers of the heart called the atria. It's a small slit-like defect that occurs in utero, in normal fetal cardiovascular development. And it allows for oxygenated blood to bypass the fetal lungs. And upon birth, after the first breath or so, that slit-like opening closes, except it persists, and it does not close in about 25% of individuals, typical healthy adults. When it doesn't close, that hole, which we call foramen ovale, is then called a patent foramen ovale, or an open foramen ovale.
I never would have pronounced it that way.
And in the vast majority of patients, 99.5% of individuals, that defect, the PFO, patent foramen ovale, has no clinical consequence, implication. It doesn't require study, surveillance, or management. Roughly a third of all strokes are so-called cryptogenic strokes. That means they're strokes, they're events, neurologic events that we do not have a good cause for. And cryptogenic strokes occurring in younger individuals, less than the age of 60, in those individuals, the prevalence of PFO is quite high. It's much higher than in the standard population.
That's my wife, by the way. She falls into that demographic.
Stroke that looks to be a blood clot, we think that blood clot traveled from the venous circulation across the hole and into the brain, across the PFO. And it's an indication in those situations after an appropriate workup for closing the PFO. Now, in those individuals older than the age of 60, perhaps up to age 65, if they have very few risk factors for stroke, they're not smokers, they don't have diabetes, they don't have high cholesterol or high blood pressure, if they have a paucity of cardiovascular risk factors and they have a large PFO, we oftentimes would lean to favor PFO closure as well. This decision is made in concert with other providers. It's a multidisciplinary decision. An interventional cardiologist with a referring cardiologist, a neurologist, and oftentimes vascular medicine physicians that work together to order these tests, evaluate the patient, and to make a team-based approach. The procedure itself is an outpatient procedure. It's done through a small incision in the vein of the leg. The device is placed carefully in through that hole. The device is made up of 2 discs, and one disc is externalized on the left side. The second disc is externalized on the right side. These discs are created with an oppositional force. They're made out of an elastic material called nitinol with fabric interwoven. And so when the discs are released, they come together almost like a clamshell on either side of the hole. Upon release of the device, skin grows over the device and fully encases the device so that it becomes fused with the wall of the heart and completes the closure. The care that we deliver for this procedure is, without exception, the most sophisticated and advanced. We're using advanced imaging. We're using a minimally invasive approach. The patients are going home on the same day. It's not a painful procedure. Our success rates are 100% without any complications. The talent that we have in the cath lab.
Okay, well, that's how that works. And that's exactly how it works from a doctor who does it. And he was not kidding. Before they decided to do this, before they decided what this actually was, they did every test imaginable. They had every specialist imaginable involved, and they all came to the same conclusion. And hey, this is the way it's going to be, and this is what we have to do to make sure that she's okay, because she's not, an old woman. And so she fit right into that criteria where somebody who is young and should not have a stroke, but they are at risk of it because of this. So the decision was made to go ahead and go in and close it. And there wasn't really any question about it. I guess the risk is fairly low, I guess, but it increases your risk later on of having a stroke. So they wanted to, take care of that before it ever got there. And so I don't really recall anybody ever going, maybe we shouldn't do this. Everybody was pretty much like, yeah, we need to do this. And I guess it could be really related to the size of it or whatever, but I did get to watch her heart beating and watch it passing through the hole between her 2 chambers, because they did an echocardiogram. Is that what it was? I believe so. And it's an imaging thing, and you could see it. I could see her heart beating, and I could see the hole in there. It kind of looks like a flap. And I could see things passing between the chambers. And they do a bubble test, and you could see the little bubbles going through there. And so that tells them that it would allow a blood clot to go through. So she went in. She had the procedure done on Friday. We were there all day. Excuse me. We were there all day. And sorry, I have a little bit of congestion going on. But so I was going to cough, and I didn't want to cough in your ear. But everything went fine. The procedure went fine. There was a little bit of a delay in the beginning, so it didn't start when it should have started. But it took less time on the operating table than they thought it was, than they told me it was going to take, actually. And they were pushing people through there so fast. I'm in the room, they take her out. About 20 minutes later, they come in and say, hey, we need the room, so I'm sorry, we have to kick you out. So I had to grab all of her stuff and go out into the waiting room and then wait until her surgery was over. And it was really only about an hour after that. And they said it could take up to a couple of hours, but it seems like it probably took them around an hour to do this entire procedure. So the rest is just healing, not lifting anything, not straining that, incision area and stuff like that, which is the same stuff I had to do whenever I did the peripheral artery disease with stents in my lower body, and then the stents around my heart after the heart attack. So it's the same kind of thing. So I can sympathize with her because it's very uncomfortable for a few days, and mine was kind of tender for a couple of weeks, probably because mine didn't stop bleeding. So they they had to apply a tremendous amount of pressure on mine the first time when they did the peripheral artery disease, and then they went through the same place for the heart attack, even though they went through my wrist the first time. Whenever they realized, oh, we probably need to do open heart surgery, then they took that out. But when they finally did go in and do the stents, they went in through the same area they did for my lower half. So I can sympathize with that being sore because it's going to be sore for a while. And but other than that, she's fine. She seems fine. She's having a difficulty sitting around and relaxing because she's supposed to pretty much just rest for the first 3 days and not pick anything up and not do anything. So she's kind of restless. She has been resting well, so she's good. But that means she's now officially a member of the podcast. She's a Marshall Hart alumni now. And I'm going to have her on so we can discuss it. And she was lucky. I mean, she didn't have to have a heart attack or anything to have her procedure done. So we'll see. And it should take care of it. And it's all over with. So that's what's been going on for the last few weeks. And that's why I haven't been around and been able to do that many podcasts. And it was because I had to take care of somebody. And so when we take care of a lot of other people too. And so it can really put a strain on your time. And so an update on me, I don't know. I have not gone back to any martial arts classes yet. And I start to really get down on myself about it. Probably some depression involved in all of that. But it's, I don't know if it's my physical health or not, but it's kind of like I'm deteriorating, not like my heart, but it's the diet changes and the medication and stuff. It's really like I'm gaining weight. Like it's not a tremendous amount. Like I'm not going to be obese now all of a sudden, but it's becoming kind of a struggle, and my energy levels are not where they need to be. So trying to deal with that, trying to get that corrected, trying to get my mind right, and it's all a challenge. It really is. Everything would improve once I get back to regular physical activity. But with everything that's been going on and the way I've been feeling, I haven't been able to do it every day like I'm supposed to, and which, becomes perpetual motion. So it's, you don't feel like working out, so you don't work out, and that makes you feel worse. And then you don't feel like working out, so you don't work out, and then you feel even round and round and round you go. So there have been days when I just bit the bullet and I went and did it anyway. And it does help. It helps me manage my stress levels and everything else. And that's been kind of a major issue lately, has been my stress levels and anxiety, depression, things like that. And it's things that, I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but it's not uncommon, apparently, when you've had a heart attack or when you have a serious condition, I guess, like that, for those things to happen. So it can be a struggle. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not immune to it any more than anybody else is. And so, we have to deal with it. And so it's a constant struggle to try to keep my diet on track and try to have the energy left at the end of the day when I come home from work so that I can work out and feel good. And the better I look, the better I'll feel, because honestly, I don't know. I'm used to not being kind of dumpy, and I'm not really dumpy yet, but if I put on 4 or 5 pounds that aren't like justified and it's just like flab or fat, it really, really just like kicks me in the gonads because it's bad for me. So I have to fix that. And once I get everything back on track, it'll be fine. But getting it back on track is the hard part. And I was doing really well. And then I had, all these other things going on, and I was worried not just for myself, but worried about my wife, and then in turn worried about everybody else, because she has a lot of people who rely on her, and I know that they are tugging at her in all directions a lot of the time, and so she's stressed out. And then so I'm stressed out, worried about her being stressed out because, hey, you have this condition and we haven't gotten it fixed yet, and round and round and round. So, that's it. But I think we're both going to be all right. I'm going to eventually have her on the podcast, since she has her own heart procedure now. She had her own heart thing. And I'm going to have her on and we'll talk about it. And I think I'm going to have her on and we're going to talk about conspiracy theories on the other podcast too. But I don't know. We'll see. She's all for it. We're going to see how that goes. But until then, hey, take care of yourselves. I'm going to try to get back in here and do it more regularly now that a lot of this stuff is over with. It should be okay. Nobody else is allowed to have any serious conditions for the rest of the year. That's the rule. It's a new rule. So no heart attacks, no strokes, no serious surgeries that are needed, no even outpatient surgeries for the remainder of the year, if that's possible. If so, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I'm glad to be back. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I'm glad to see you through that camera lens. And anyway, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.